right, hi everyone. My name is Bonnie Garcia Glockner. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of National Fellowships. I have a few of my colleagues here from the Office of National Fellowships and the Office of Graduate Fellowships and Awards. If you want to introduce yourselves, fellas.
You go first, Keith.
Okay, I'm Keith McCall. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Graduate Fellowships. And while Jesse introduces himself, I'm going to launch a poll for you all to take.
Yeah, my name is Jesse Wieland. This is my 9th year working with Fulbright. I'm the Associate Director over the Office of National Fellowships. So excited to get this process rolling again.
Yeah, and as you'll see as we go through this, there's a reason that we're talking to you in February about an award that's not due until October. Fulbright is a very involved process. We want to make sure you're as prepared as possible. So are you interested in applying for Fulbright this cycle? Okay.
Not sure.
Not sure. Well, hopefully this clears up a lot of those questions that you may have, or maybe get you thinking about other ones to help make your decision. Those of you that are not thinking about applying, I'm assuming are here because you maybe plan to apply in a future cycle, in which case great. Or if you're just on a fact-finding mission for a group of friends, that works too. We hope that you get everything you need. What's the current student status? Can you scroll down?
It's a 63% undergrad and 38% graduate.
Nice, okay, cool. And then we've got type of activity you're planning to pursue, ETA and study research, pretty split there. Nice, okay.
Yeah.
Study research, as you'll see, encompasses a lot of things. So it could be that some of you are thinking about graduate enrollment, which you'll see is also part of that. And we'll this is a pretty good split. I feel like you'll all get a good overview of the program today. And then if you're joining us tomorrow, I believe it's about the English teaching assistantship. So those of you that are looking at that route, please join us tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we will be looking at the study research awards or the academic grants. Thank you all for being here.
And then Friday, if you do have any specific questions, or kind of just like an informal one-on-one meeting, we'll be holding open office hours. So you can meet with either Bonnie, myself, and Keith, I'm not sure, might be joining as well. Great. And that'll be from 10 a.m. until noon.
Yeah, so we'll be in the Great Hall, which is on the 4th floor of this building for that. But you're also welcome to pop in on Zoom. Excuse me, if you've registered, then you'll have the link for that on Friday.
Want to share screen?
Just need to pop this down, right?
Yeah.
Is it back up?
Let everyone be it if everyone can see.
Yeah, okay, cool. So today we're going to be going over a little bit of everything just to get you guys, give you guys an idea of what the cycle looks like. What is Fulbright, right? Let's go. There we go. So we're going to be looking at, what is Fulbright? How does that play into what FSU students have been doing with Fulbright? Talk about that eligibility and grant details. So like I mentioned, Fulbright kind of comes in 2 flavors, ETAs or study research awards. So we'll go over those really briefly. We'll go through an application checklist. So the things that you will need to sort of put together as part of an application. And, very generally what makes strong applications, things to start thinking about as you go into like brainstorming your essays or application materials. And we'll talk about that timeline, which is for us is a very important timeline. It's very important for you all that are applying too, because we want to make sure that everyone gets the most out of the advising experience that they can, and that you're getting the most out of what FSU faculty has to offer as well. So we do work very closely with a faculty committee towards the end of our process. Okay, so what is Fulbright? Fulbright is sponsored by the State Department, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. They say the Fulbright program, the flagship international academic exchange program sponsored by the US government, has fostered mutual understanding between the United States and other countries since 1946. So this award is open to students, alumni, scholars, teachers, artists, professionals in the setting, so not just faculty, but staff as well. And so there are many different Fulbright programs within the umbrella of Fulbright. The one that you all are looking at is the US Student Program. But just to give you an idea, Fulbright itself works with about 160 different countries. I believe 90 of them have their own Fulbright Commission. And they're awarding about 8,000 of these awards every year to that large assemblage of people. And the idea is just how do we foster mutual understanding? How do we get that sort of cultural connections between nations? That was at the heart of Fulbright when it started, and that continues to be really their large mission throughout. So thinking about that then, FSU has been fortunate enough since the 1960s to have had over 160 applicants receive a Fulbright award. This has allowed our students, right, to go out and be citizen diplomats in lots of countries. In fact, you can see the whole list of them there. I think we tallied it up. Germany was still the most, but I mean, some of these, just the experiences that people have had, the opportunities that they've had by going to these countries has been, immense. And I have this sort of photo up here to show you the 9 people who were awarded Fulbrights.
People are asking if they can share it on the Zoom screen. They're having trouble
Oh.
seeing the slides.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you see it or?
I think that's what the view is.
Oh, okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the slides really, really closely. Let's see.
I can,
It'd be good if I shared this screen.
ah,
Sorry about that, guys. I wondered why everything looked different than normal. Okay. Everyone can see that
and now
now.
we're good. And we're
Okay,
back. And we're
cool.
back.
So like I said, this list represents everywhere that a FSU Fulbrighter has gone at some point since the 1960s. It's very interesting. You can actually go onto the Fulbright website and see the grantee directory. So not only is it going to give you all of the countries, it's also going to tell you what type of research they were doing there. And if you get pretty far back, it's pretty interesting to see the different topics that people have pursued that still all fall under that umbrella of a Fulbright. These 9 folks here are the 9 individuals from FSU that were selected as Fulbrights last cycle. So we've got people that are going to Uzbekistan, we've got people that are going to Taiwan, we've got people going to Spain, Brazil, Uruguay. What else is in there?
Oh, from last,
Hungary?
I think that was last, maybe, I don't know.
There's lots.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Greece and Turkey joint award.
That's it.
Yes,
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So all this to say that I think it's Fulbright, and what you want to do with it is really just dependent on what your interests are and what you're hoping to achieve, maybe where you're hoping to go with that Fulbright. So basic eligibility, there's sort of 4 main things. You have to be a citizen or national of the US at the time of application. If you are working on your citizenship, if you're working to get that established, all of that needs to be done before the October deadline. So they need to have that set away. It can't be when it starts. It can't be, like, oh, just a few days after. They are really hard and strict about that October deadline. You also have to have a conferred bachelor's degree or equivalent before the start of the grant. So oftentimes O&F, we're working with undergraduates, we're working with recent alums, but we're also working with people that are in between that junior and senior year, right? That summer before senior year. And you'll see why, because it's a very long application process. But we're working with people even as early as that end of junior year going into senior year. And then we also will work with you after you've graduated. So, I mean, if maybe Fulbright isn't for you right now, or maybe you apply and you don't get it. I mean, we have had that situation pop up. I mean, how many times?
Students that reapply and do get it, there's always at least one every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, our basic feeling is that until you enroll somewhere else, you still have access to our office, right? And we will help you with that application. And then if you're a graduate student, Your timeline will be a bit different because that's obviously going to depend on your graduate studies, what your PI has to say, maybe your committee, and that's where Dr. McCall, Keith, will help you figure out maybe where that works within your timeline. You have to meet a language requirement. So not every award has a language requirement, but the ones that do, they are very strict about that. So not only are you going to meet that, you're also going to get a form that a professional signs off on saying that you have met that requirement. And you have to be in good health. So grantees are required to submit this satisfactory medical clearance form from their physician. Although I will say that if you do have medical conditions, Fulbright is more than happy to work with you. It's just you need to communicate your needs early so that they can make sure that it's still feasible with what you're trying to accomplish. Oh, and I will say if at any time you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Don't feel like you have to wait. Nothing here is precious. Okay. Like I mentioned, there are two types of grants available. You have your academic grants, which are going to fund things like a year of graduate school abroad. It's going to fund things like independent research. It'll fund you maybe doing some sort of arts project as that. All of those fall under that heading of academic grants. And then you have the English teaching assistantships. So this is allowing students to go and teach English abroad. Like I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to speak the language. They want you to come there. They want you to speak English for the most part. Oftentimes you're working with a coordinating teacher, though I will point out that some of the country sites will say, whether or not you're going to be on your own for the most part or working alongside someone. There are times that they'll want people that have a lot of teaching experience, at times where that won't matter at all. It is really country specific. So at the end of today, when we're done with the presentation, I'm going to pull up the Fulbright website and we'll take a look at just what those country sites, country pages look like. And there are certain things you'll want to be on the lookout for as you go through the process. But these grants, they're going to cover travel expenses, your health insurance, and you'll get a monthly stipend. This isn't going to be you, living in the lap of luxury while you're there, but it'll give you some funds that you can experience that community that you're in. I think we all kind of tell students it doesn't hurt to save a little bit beforehand so you have more pocket change before you go over. But just be aware that that is part of it. Most grants are between 8 to 12 months long. So you are, overseas for a very significant amount of time. And we want to make sure that you're also prepared for that. And one thing I'll point out is you can only apply to one award type or one country. Sometimes that's multi-country, right? In some regions per cycle. So if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I really want to do an ETA, but I don't know if I want to be in Spain or Italy. That is a decision that you will have to make before you start really working on your applications. One of the biggest things that makes a strong application is being able to be specific about where you're going. And just by the rules of Fulbright, you can't be applying to two countries. So making sure that you feel confident in your selection very early on. And like I mentioned, if you want more details about the ETAs, that'll be tomorrow. Academic grants will be on Thursday. I'm going to get this to go away. No, cool. Not what I wanted. All right, anyway, application checklist, right? You're eligible, you know that you've met that requirement, you know the award you want to apply for. What do you do now? Fulbright has an online portal that starts your application process. So that is going to be where you're submitting everything to Fulbright. You don't think it's open right now. It typically opens in late March, but you will have access to that early on, and you are welcome to go and make that account. That's part of what you'll need to submit. You'll also need to submit 2 essays. So one is your statement of grant purpose, and one is that personal statement. Your personal statement is really where you're getting into, your motivations for why you are pursuing this particular award, maybe what your future goals are and how something like this fits into those future goals. Your statement of grant purpose is sort of your nuts and bolts essay. It's like, how are you going to do the things you want to do in country? What organizations do you plan to work with? What type of teaching techniques do you plan to employ in the classroom? That's where that side of the essay comes into play. Your language evaluation, so like I mentioned, if you have a language requirement for your country, you will have to have that form completed. So we work pretty closely with a number of faculty members here on campus, but if you do have a language that you need evaluated, oftentimes this is just contacting Modern Languages, getting that set up. We always recommend doing that earlier rather than later. Everyone's schedules can get kind of hairy over the summer, and you want to make sure that that's completed. Same thing with your letters of recommendation and any letters of affiliation you might need, right? Letters of recommendation. Start thinking about who are 3 people that could speak to your abilities, to your plans after graduation, that can speak to your tenacity in sort of going after an award like this. You will want 3 very strong recommenders to be able to advocate for you, right? If you are doing an ETA, these are actually recommendation forms. You can see what that looks like on their website. They have that all available to you now. So if there is any concern about what they would be speaking to in those recommendations, you can take a look early. Letters of affiliation. If you are doing an academic grant, more than likely, I think all of them require it, right?
Vast majority.
Require this letter of affiliation or affiliations. Basically, this is an entity, person, organization, whatever, in that host country that is saying that they will be sort of your point of contact. Like, we've read over what this student wants to do, or maybe you're working with a colleague over here. Like, I know that they have the techniques that will work for what we're trying to do. So we agree to help them in that process, right? That letter needs to get attached to your application as well. That is one that if you're doing a study of research, you will want to start thinking about that very, very early. So oftentimes, especially in Europe, if you're looking at those countries, summertime rolls around, everything shuts down. So for instance, France, if you try to contact them in late May, early June and say, I need this letter of affiliation, it's possible they're not going to see that until August. So obviously, likely. So obviously you want to make sure that you're thinking about that early on. You're speaking with any collaborators potentially early on, trying to get that set up well in advance of the summer. You'll need official transcripts from every institution you've attended. You'll need a passport. You'll also need a portfolio if you are an arts applicant. So this is a very sort of watered down version of everything that you need. And obviously there are some nuances depending on the award, but this should give you an idea of sort of the packet that you're looking to build over those summer months. And so what makes a strong application? I mean, I think sort of first and foremost, you want to be able to show that you have this commitment to that Fulbright mission, right? That you understand how important it is to build those cultural connections, to understand that we are in a global environment where we're going to be interacting with people from all walks of life. And so you really want to show that commitment in your essays. So are your essays authentic to your story? Are they relevant to the prompt and where you're planning to go? Are they compelling? Do they make people want to send you abroad and fund you to go do this experience, right? And that's where obviously our offices will come in and help with that too. Other factors that make a strong application, if you have limited previous in-country experience. So if you've never been before to the country, that's sort of a point in your favor because here's now this opportunity to explore something new. If you have been in the country previously, part of your application is going to have to explain why it is you need to go back. You know, why should they fund you to do something you've already done or already been, right? The other factors, language proficiency, and not just the evaluation form, but just a general desire or plans to learn. So, you know, even if you, so I have a student that is potentially going to Belgium, right? And part of her application was explaining it's not necessarily required, but she was explaining how she's brushing up on some of the national languages so that at least she can communicate with the organizations that she's looking at a little bit deeper, right? Those types of things show that there's a commitment to that mission, right? It's just hearkening back to what we talked about earlier. They want to see a project that is country specific. So as you're writing that statement of grant purpose, if you're talking about, doing a particular research project, or you're talking about teaching, and you could literally just, Control F, change Spain to Italy on all of them, that's probably not specific enough if it still makes sense, right? You want something that actually speaks to the community that you're going into and makes sense for those students or that university. And lastly, they're looking for feasible projects, right? Feasible pedagogy. If you're, talking about a research project that very clearly will need many, many years to process, that's not something that's really within the bounds of that 1-year Fulbright. For that matter, if you're talking about, taking your students on field trips all around the countryside, that's probably not within the bounds of what you can do as an ETA. So make sure that those projects, the way that you go about teaching, the pedagogy, that it makes sense for where you're going. Okay, so we are going to be using a Canvas site here at FSU so that you have access to all of us, but you also have access to everyone that's applying. So start making that community, that cohort of people as they go through the cycle. Let's see, we've got June 5th as the enrollment deadline for that. So if you're here in the Zoom or you registered for this, you will be sent an email later in the semester with the self-enroll link. So you'll be able to put yourself into the Canva course. Really, really important that you enroll by that deadline, because then in a few weeks, June 20th, we're going to require that your first essay drafts are in Canva. That's really going to help us figure out where you sort of are in the process. How much help do you need to perfect that essay, right? Or not perfect, but refine it. And between that 5th and 20th is when you'll be assigned a Fulbright advisor. So it'll be myself, it'll be Jesse, it'll be Keith. More than likely, it'll be one of the three of us. If you are a graduate student, probably work with Keith. If you're alumni and undergrads, more than likely you'll work with Jesse or I. So you'll have an advisor. You'll start working on those drafts. You'll get those submitted by June 20th, and they are drafts. This isn't like final by any means. This is just to give us an idea of how you want to approach these articles. August 28th and August 29th are going to be our campus deadlines. Those are also very strict, hard deadlines for us. If you meet those deadlines, then we will be able to have you interview with the campus committee. So the faculty committee comes together, they conduct the interviews for Fulbright, and then one of them will write what's called a campus committee evaluation form, which when done well, is really like another letter of recommendation attached to your application. That's also stamped that says Florida State approves this student. Yes, you can apply without having that, but we do not recommend it. Your chances of getting selected sort of decrease, especially if the review board knows that there is a campus committee and you had a chance to be a part of that review process. So August 28th, 29th, make sure that those dates are in your calendar. And then the national deadline is October 8th, though I will say that our students are typically fully applied and done the week before that. So we want to make sure that no one at FSU that's applying through our offices is having to slide into home. They are well taken care of before that deadline. There's also a point where we just don't have access to the portal anymore. So if something's wrong, we can't help you as we get too close to the deadline. After that, there's sort of a series of dates that don't really help you much because you don't have access to changing any of that. The semifinalists are announced in late January. That is after they have, applications have been reviewed by the national board here in the States. Those semifinalist applications are then sent abroad to the individual commissions, where they will choose the finalists. That selection process can take, I mean, I've seen people find out as early as like late February, early March, and then some that don't find out until June. So it is a wide amount of time. And then that Fulbright's not typically starting until like August, September, right? So you can see, I mean, again, there's a reason that we're talking to you now in February about this award, because there is such a long buildup to October and the things that you need to do to have your application as refined as possible. So how can we help? Like I mentioned, I think our main thing would be essay workshopping and revision. Obviously, we're here to assist with that, but also just application management. So, you know, we'll probably ask you, hey, where's your recommenders? Have you got those in yet? You know, that'll be a common refrain as we get further into the summer. We'll make sure that your transcripts or unofficial copy right now is uploaded, right? And just make sure that all of those sort of bits and bobs that come with it are taken care of. I mean, in addition to your two main essays, you also have like a series of smaller essays that you'll have to, they're like paragraphs really, that are part of the overall application. So we'll help with that. You know, we're just here to help be that guide. So if you do have any specific questions about Fulbright that we don't have the answer to, we can also get you connected with the people at the main Fulbright offices who can assist. And then just so you can see, this is our team, right? There's really the five of us between AGFA and ONF. We've got our two directors, Dr. Adrian Stevenson, Dr. Craig Filer, and then there are the three of us. So all of us are sort of coming together to help you through this process. We want to make sure that you feel as supported as possible because it is a very lengthy, it's a very involved application. And you know, that's what we're here for. It's sort of our bread and butter. So what I was planning to do now was to pull up the website for Fulbright so that you can see what a country page looks like, sort of be on the lookout for certain things on that page. Make sure that you know how to navigate that over the next few weeks, because I think if you're serious about applying, right, you'll want to really start narrowing that down now. You know, we have that June 5th deadline. You're welcome to contact us before that. We can start working with you, you know, now if you knew where you wanted to go. It's just a matter of reaching out. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before I go to the website?
Nothing in chat.
Okay. Okay, let's. Yes, please contact us before June 5th. Where it is. Sure. Okay, everyone can see that? So you'll see at the top here, it's us.fulbrightonline.org. It should say Fulbright US Student Program. If you start your application and it just says Fulbright Program, I regret to inform you that that is the wrong place. So please make sure it says US Student Program at the top there. But who knows, maybe in the future when you're a professor, you'll also get a Fulbright fellowship. It's totally possible. Okay, so on this page gives you a nice map of the world. You can obviously click to a specific country here, or they have them broken down into regions here. And the other place that I'll point out is under applicants, there is an award search. So let's start with the award search. This is obviously this is the number of awards up here in the upper right-hand corner. of the boxes. And these are the numbers from the last cycle, so they're not, they may change going into this next cycle, but this will give you an idea of the types of awards that are available. So you can filter all of these by the type of award, the region, the country, language proficiency. So if that's a concern for you, you can see which ones. Say you wanted to do an ETA, but you also don't want to have to deal with a language, right? The other thing with ETAs is there's different placement types. So maybe you only want to work with elementary school students. Well, here are the 5 places where you could work with elementary school students. You don't have a language requirement, and they are ETA positions. So Albania, Greece, North Macedonia, Taiwan, and Thailand. I just point this out because there are so many choices. And if you just go straight to the country page and you're not sure what country you want to start with, or maybe even the award that you're thinking about, it can be very overwhelming. So if this can help narrow down that initial search, I think that's a pretty nice way to go about this. So yeah, again, you can go through all of this accepted degree levels. If you're an undergrad and you've just completed the bachelor's, you can click that. But if you're a master's or doctoral student, there are some that are only available for graduate students. Okay, so say you decided to do the teaching assistantship, you've decided Taiwan is where you want to go, right? It's going to take you to the specific country page for that. And in here, it'll tell you the degree levels that are accepted, when the grants typically start, how long they are. So in Taiwan, it's 11 months. The award type. So some of these countries, if you go to the country, will tell you, if you go to Taiwan, there are 150 ETA awards available, but there are also these awards available if you wanted to do like a master's degree, right, at different universities. The UK page kind of looks like this too, because it's all graduate study in different places. And then open study and research awards. So if you have a project that you're not necessarily affiliated with a university, maybe you are completing your own study, you could apply for something like that. On all of them, they will have an award profile. So it'll tell you basically what that specific region is looking for, what type of community that you would be placed into. They also give you a candidate profile. So like I said, sometimes with the ETAs in particular, they will want you to have some teaching experience. That's where it would show up here. It's not always required, but it's good to know exactly what you are getting into. They'll have eligibility requirements. So oftentimes if you are, I think with all of them actually, if you're a dual citizen, you are not eligible for that country. So they want you to branch out. Foreign language proficiency, right? And we'll talk about supplemental projects tomorrow. And any other things. So some of these will provide financial support for your dependents. Some will talk about the housing arrangements. Sometimes that's just up to you to find your housing needs during that time. And any other additional resources. It's pretty often, at least when I work with students, I just have them bookmark their country page. And then oftentimes, especially the first few drafts, that page will just be open, right? So if you can speak to certain things in that candidate profile that they're looking for within your personal statement, your statement of grant purpose, obviously that is going to give you a more specified materials, more specified application, which can only assist as you're going through the process. For something like the study research awards, let's see. So like the open study research awards, again, it'll give you the grant time, award profile, the grant period for that, candidate profile, right? The types of awards they're looking for. So it looks like, for Taiwan, they're really looking for a lot of these creative and performing arts applications. So something to think about, right? If you're not really going to those fields, is this the best place for the research that you're hoping to do? Or is this the best award for that? Maybe something like one of the graduate research or study awards would be better, right? Any eligibility requirements, foreign language requirements are in there. Again, affiliation, so we'll get into more of that on Thursday, but all of those material info will be there. housing arrangements, additional information. Every single site, every single country page is going to be different because almost every single country has its own Fulbright commission. And those that don't are still administered through Fulbright in some way, and they have very specific requirements. You know, what one country may need as far as teaching needs being met is not going to be the same as the other. What one country has as far as available resources for someone to do a research project may not be what another country has. So some of these countries you'll see like they'll only have ETA awards. Some of them will only have graduate study awards. It is really dependent on where you want to go and what you're hoping to do. Anything on the website that you think we should go over?
One thing that you can also look at, if I've had students in the past that are like, I know this is where my project needs to be, but I don't know anyone in country. I don't even know anyone I could reach out to that has traveled there in the past. You can, under the alumni tab, you can go to the grantee director. Well, actually, we should start with the alumni ambassadors. All the way back to 2008. There are students that have agreed, former Fulbrighters that have agreed to be contacted by anyone interested in a Fulbright. It'll say, this is the type of project I did, this is where I traveled, these are identities I hold. If you would like to talk about how that shows up in this international space, please feel free to reach out. You will find a lot of diversity amongst like the countries and projects. But even then I've had students that have, not been able to find someone that they're looking for, would be relevant for their project. In that case, you can also go to the grantee directory. And I had a student a few years ago that was applying for a public health project in Vietnam. And had to go back a few years, but then was able to find students that had done similar projects in that field in Vietnam. And if you can get past the slight awkwardness of reaching out to someone randomly and being like, hey, I found your name online. And I have never in the years that I've worked with this had a former Fulbrighter that was not receptive or at least willing to have a conversation about their project. And in this particular case, this person was like, yep, here are the names, emails, and contact information of all the people that I worked with in country. Here's my application if you would like to take a look at like what I did, and was extremely helpful. That being said, we also have years worth of alumni that we can connect you with, sample essays that we can review after you've developed your pieces, as kind of just, if you need a break from just drafting your own essays. And so we have plenty of resources for you to utilize, so please don't hesitate to ask.
So, Keith, anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. Just in case people didn't see it in the chat, do just keep in mind if you're looking at award profiles right now for different countries that they are not necessarily what's going to be accurate for the award you would actually be applying for this fall. Fulbright will update the information sometime around late March or April to reflect this year's awards being offered. So, like for instance, if you're looking at Germany, last year they offered 70 open studies. They may not offer 70 again this year. They probably will. Things don't radically shift usually, but just keep that in mind that small details may shift in, what a country is emphasizing or what awards are being offered.
But otherwise, does anyone have any questions?
Type them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself
or
if
just
you would
unmute
like.
yourself. I did a real good job. All right, well, if you are interested in the ETA, please join us tomorrow or at least register for that. And if you're interested in one of the study research awards, we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Even if you can't attend, if you register, you will be sent the video afterwards. So we encourage you to do that. And if you do think of anything in the interim, you can always email us, obviously, or you can attend our open office hours on Friday, and we'd be happy to answer any questions then too. And I think that's it from us. Thank you all so much.